Hello and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the southeast. Opponents call them trinkets and tat, but removing mementos from this Kent graveyard has led to anger and acrimony.
Every other graveyard in this diocese allows it, but not here. Not here, why? Why not here?
The man accused of the murder of Alexandra Morgan, a mother of two from Kent, is now charged with the murder of Leah Ware from Hastings as well.
Also this Friday evening, long to rule over us as the country marks a remarkable reign. We look back 70 years to see how the southeast remembers the day the Queen came to the throne.
And Millie from Kent at 70 miles an hour on the piste, hoping to turn white into gold for the Winter Games. Good evening. It's supposed to be a place of peace and rest, but it's become a battlefield, where some see graveyards as places for precious mementos and personal memories of loved ones. Others have called the items trinkets and tat.
And now things have come to a head at Bredhurst near Gillingham, where the Church of England has ordered the removal of many tributes left on family graves. As Tony Green now reports, it's led to accusations of stripping babies' graves.
No toys, no tinsel, no tat. Memorials that haven't met regulations here at St Peter's Churchyard in Bredhurst have been removed. It prompted a request to relax rules that last changed 40 years ago, forbidding fake flowers, fairies and photos.
They constantly remove items. They take items from children's graves. They won't allow parents of the children to celebrate birthdays up here. They won't allow a candle on the grave.
But the results of a consultation came back today saying the majority of people who were asked wanted things to stay the same.
The items are not huge, they're not tat, they are personal, and every other graveyard in this diocese allows it, but not here. Not here, why? Why not here?
Why are people going around removing things from children's graves?
The churchyard regulations make clear what can and can't be on all graves, and there comes a point in which those who look after the churchyard want to make sure that what's on the graves is what's there appropriately.
What's Christian about imposing your taste on someone else's grief?
I think the churchyard and those who choose to have their relatives, their loved ones buried in the churchyard, in a sense they're picking up something of what this place represents.
Now the church says they've carried out a consultation and they've gone through all of the responses. Does that satisfy you?
No, the consultation wouldn't withstand any external scrutiny. They moved the goalpost on eligibility, on timescale, and made it far too long. I mean, it was question 30 before it even got to the original intent of the consultation to ask whether people wanted change or not.
Maureen Cannon comes here to visit the grave of her husband. She took part in the consultation but wasn't aware of the controversy.
I hadn't understood what was going on, if you like, so my answer was just please keep it the same as I've been used to.
With so much anger and emotion, despite the best efforts of the church to be open, today's announcement hasn't laid the issue to rest. Tony Green, ITV News, Bredhurst.
A man accused of the murder of a mother of two from Sissinghurst in Kent appeared in court today and pleaded not guilty.
But in a new development, Mark Brown from Hastings was also accused of murdering another missing woman, Leah Ware from Hastings, last May. Live to Lewis Crown Court and Kit Bradshaw. Kit, what more can you tell us?
Well, a significant development here today where 40-year-old Mark Brown from St Leonards-on-Sea had been due to appear charged with the murder of one woman, that of Alexandra Morgan, a 34-year-old mother of two from Kent. She disappeared in November of last year, a disappearance that sparked a major public appeal and police searches in a number of locations, in Sissinghurst, where she lived, in Cranbrook and in the countryside near Hastings. Now, Mr Brown pleaded not guilty to murdering Miss Morgan when he appeared via video link from Belmarsh Prison earlier, but during that hearing it was revealed he was facing a second charge, that of murdering Leah Ware, also a woman in her 30s who disappeared last year. She was 33 and from Hastings, and a missing persons appeal was issued just weeks after that of Alexandra Morgan. Now, Mark Brown was not asked to enter a plea in relation to her killing. That'll be put to him at his next appearance here on the 25th of March. And in a further development this evening, in a rare joint statement, the senior investigating officers from Kent Police and Sussex Police have issued this statement. They have said, "Our thoughts are with the families of both Alexandra and Leah at this difficult time. Whilst we have located the remains of Alexandra, we have yet to find Leah, and our investigations are ongoing. We are appealing for anyone with information regarding either Leah or Alexandra to contact us urgently, and those with information are asked to contact their local force on 101, quoting the incident name, that's Operation Gallery in Kent and Operation Acresdown in Sussex."
Kit Bradshaw, thank you.
In other news, the coroner due to hold inquests into the deaths of 11 men in the Shoreham airshow tragedy has lost her bid to get video footage from the pilot's cockpit. Andrew Hill survived when his jet crashed 7 years ago. The Sussex coroner wanted the footage ahead of the inquest to determine whether the pilot could have suffered cognitive impairment ahead of the crash. Well, the High Court has rejected the coroner's appeal.
Police are renewing their appeal for witnesses to come forward after the death of a schoolboy in Gravesend. Officers were called to Vale Road near the Northfleet Technology College on Wednesday due to reports of a collision between a pedestrian and a minibus. An 11-year-old boy was taken to hospital where he died. A teenage boy, who was also a pedestrian, was arrested on suspicion of manslaughter and released on bail pending further inquiries.
2 men have been jailed after a high-speed crash in Sussex, which killed a 24-year-old man. 2 cars were seen racing at speeds of more than 100 miles per hour along the A24 near Southwater in December 2020. One of them lost control and crashed into trees, killing passenger Callum Chapman. Well, Callum's mother has described him as a bright, shining beacon. The drivers were sentenced to a combined total of 3.5 years in prison.
The result was never in doubt. What was unclear is what the turnout was likely to be and whether apathy would mean most voters stayed at home.
Conservative Anna Firth has been elected as the successor to Sir David Amess in True Blue Southend West. Well, Sir David died in an attack in his constituency last year. His successor paid tribute to him in her first speech as the city's MP. With more, Charlie Frost.
And I do hereby declare that Annalisa Firth is duly elected.
It was Sir David's seat, and won comfortably by the Tories, it will remain in the hands of his party, but now with Anna Firth at the helm.
I would like to thank the people of Southend West for placing their trust in me today.
Born in Lee, this is a homecoming for the qualified barrister and first-time MP.
I'm incredibly conscious that I've got huge boots to fill here, but I'm also incredibly excited that I am now the MP for Southend West.
But there's no doubt she's joining Westminster at a time of turbulence.
Absolutely fed up. It's going from bad to worse.
People are frustrated, very conservative area, and I don't think that we've necessarily been served by that in what the government's been up to recently.
I didn't have anyone to vote for, so I spoiled my paper.
The low turnout, the third lowest in the history of by-elections, has led to some commentators labelling it apathy on sea. But maybe it was more of a protest, with the 2 other mainstream parties not standing. Spoilt papers, some scrawled with "Get Boris Out," came second to the Conservatives.
But Southend West's new MP isn't worried. She says the Prime Minister has her full support.
Interesting that there was no left-wing candidate on the ballot paper. So I would have expected there to be more spoilt ballot papers.
The Conservatives have held the Southend West seat since it was created in 1950. Sir David Amess, an Essex MP for nearly 40 years before he was killed in October. So there's no question Anna Firth has big shoes to fill. Charlie Frost, ITV News in Leigh-on-Sea.
You're watching ITV News in the Meridian region. Coming up.
The world at her feet like the mountains around her. Millie's hopes are high as the Winter Games get underway in China.
For more on all of our stories, go to itv.com/Meridian. You can give us a call, the number's on your screen. And remember, you can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter.
Now, in the last 30 years, at least 20 serious tree pests and diseases have been imported into the country, resulting in the loss of tens of millions of trees.
Ash dieback is probably the most well-known tree of these, but there are concerns. Unless the government toughens up on the imports, more species of tree could be at risk.
Yes, and after investigating the devastating impact ash dieback is having on our landscape, Armani Khan has been finding out whether lessons have in fact been learnt.
90 million. That's the number of new trees that need to be planted in the UK by the end of 2024 if the government are to meet their own targets. Many of those are being grown here in the southeast, and for Adam Dunnett, who supplies trees all over the region, using as many British-grown trees is important as it protects our landscape and prevents importing more infected trees.
The prevention of serious pests and diseases coming into the UK, and those standards have not always been as high as they should be, and we have tended to import cheap trees from Europe. So by having high biosecurity standards in UK nurseries, it helps prevent bringing in those serious pests and diseases.
But the reality is that British nurseries alone cannot meet demand. This business imports more than 5 million trees a year from the Netherlands.
We have to import trees to allow us to provide all of the range that are asked for by architects, by specifiers, by planners, things that maybe aren't produced within the UK. In terms of biosecurity, we have more to lose than anyone's, because if we get the wrong pest or disease on our nursery, it can close our business down.
But those diseases aren't just a problem for businesses. It's 10 years since ash dieback was first recorded in the UK, having been imported from Europe. Some estimates predict it could eventually wipe out as many as 95% of all ash trees in the country. But ash dieback isn't the only threat to our forests. At this site, around 200 large trees have been infected with Phytophthora ramorum. You can't see it in the winter, but these are infected with a fungus that will eventually kill them. Here that means 3 hectares of trees will have to be destroyed. The Woodland Trust says the government's plan to plant more trees will count for little if existing woodlands are lost.
Biosecurity is our key issue, really. Lots of plant health issues come through infected stock from abroad. And just recently we've had 2 new infections. So we've had another Phytophthora species, Phytophthora pluvalis, that was found in Cornwall and then into the Lake Districts and Scotland and now in Wales. So it's not just a static sort of issue, it's an ongoing concern for us.
The government says protecting our trees is vital. In a statement, they said they're working to stop tree pests and diseases before they arrive through international surveillance to spot new risks. And they're taking action at the border with stringent biosecurity checks on plant and wood imports. And there are robust contingency plans to tackle the pests and diseases that do make it through. 1.5 million hectares of additional woodland is needed to help reach targets of net zero carbon. But if we want to tackle climate change, we need to start by lowering the risk of felling trees across our woodlands. Armani Khan, ITV News.
It's frightening, isn't it? All those trees that we're losing. It's really not good news.
It certainly is. OK, time for sport now with Sarah Gom. And Sarah, taken to the slopes for us today.
Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yes, thank you, Andrew. I'm not, sadly, but lots of people are, because the Winter Olympic Games have opened in Beijing today, with the competition beginning in earnest tomorrow. And one athlete from Kent is paying particular attention to the action as she prepares for selection to the Winter Paralympics. So far this year, Canterbury-born Millie Knight has secured her second para-skiing World Championship title. And that comes after recovering from severe concussion and injury. Millie's now hoping her lightning form means she will be chosen to compete in what would be her 3rd Paralympic Games. Jo Caution caught up with her.
My name's Millie Knight. I'm a 3-time Paralympic skier.
I hope you're not forgetting your 2nd World Championship.
It's because my title's changed. My name's Millie Knight. I'm a 3-time Paralympic medalist and 2-time world champion.
It's fair to say Millie Knight's second paraskiing world title hasn't quite sunk in yet. But there was a time when she genuinely believed competing on the slopes was over. Several severe concussions and injuries knocked her confidence and kept her sidelined for large parts of the last few seasons. With the Winter Paralympics now just a month away, her preparations are as good as they could be.
It was a relief in my head to know that I have still got it. Everything is definitely going in the right direction, and I think I'd be in a much worse place if I was going into Beijing having not won any medals.
Skiing at 70 miles per hour is terrifying enough. Now imagine doing it with just 5% of your sight. That's how Millie has been skiing since the age of 6. When competing, she relies on glimpses of her guide Brett's bright bib and communicates with him through a Bluetooth headset. But despite a flurry of medals in the last few weeks, Millie still needs to wait to hear if she's been selected by Paralympics GB. If she is, it'll be her third Games by the age of 23.
I truly believe that I'm potentially not at the level that everybody else in my field is at. So Brett and I are going for the performances rather than the medals, because if we try and put ourselves under the pressure of winning a medal, then that's when unnecessary stress and mistakes happen.
Meticulous in her training, measured in her ambitions. Hopefully this is just the calm before Millie's snowstorm in Beijing. Joe Caution, ITV News.
Yes, hopefully. Absolutely incredible. Right, now to the FA Cup, and Brighton's journey in the much-loved competition continues with their 4th round tie at Tottenham tomorrow evening. Graham Potter's in-form side are currently widely regarded as a team capable of beating anyone, and Seagulls fans are hoping their team can extend Tottenham's long wait for a trophy.
That's what the FA Cup is. It's a chance for us to one-off. It's a final. Whoever loses out. So that in itself creates the pressure. We just need to go there and play well, and like I said, have a bit of luck as well, because you need that in a game of football.
Our Football League teams are also in action tomorrow. Crawley hosts Stevenage, while Gillingham travel to Ipswich under new manager Neil Harris, the former Millwall and Cardiff boss, hoping his side can follow up their midweek win over Crewe.
I think we just saw small glimpses Tuesday night of the quality we've got and how the players want to learn. We've got a long way to go. We need to try and do it as quickly as we can. And we are going to get things wrong, but the players know we're going to get them wrong in an honest fashion. So we look forward to that.
Finally, Brighton boxer Chris Eubank Jr. is back in the ring tomorrow in a British middleweight fight against Liam Williams. Eubank was due to face the Welshman last month, but the British Boxing Board of Control suspended all UK bouts to allow medical staff to concentrate on their work with the NHS during the pandemic. Eubank's won 31 of his 33 professional bouts and will be hoping a victory could pave the way to another world title challenge. Good luck to him. And just a reminder, Brighton's 4th round clash with Tottenham tomorrow, live on ITV4 from 7:15.
Not to be missed, Sarah. Thank you very much indeed. Now, it's quite a remarkable achievement. On Sunday, it will be 70 years since Elizabeth II became Queen, one of the longest reigns in history.
It was February the 6th, 1952, when she was in Africa, that she received news of her father's premature death. George VI was just 56 years old. Nick Smith has been looking at how the South East mourned his death and ushered in a new Queen.
For people of a certain generation, it was one of those "where were you when you heard the news" moments. 7 decades ago, the last time it was announced that a British monarch had died. 90-year-old Peter Popplestone from Bexhill-on-Sea was returning from a stint in national service in Egypt, and it wasn't soon after he'd arrived back in Britain that he heard of the King's death.
It must have been, I don't know, 11 o'clock, something like that in the morning. And I said, there's a flag on the Guildhall and it's at half-mast. Somebody must have died. And we looked around, you could see other flags. And they also had all been lowered to half-mast. We passed a newsagent's shop And there, hastily on the sort of board that they stick outside, you know, to give the headlines, it says, King George VI dies.
Newspapers across the region, like the East Kent Gazette, rushed to publish their tributes to George VI, with this edition from 2 days after his death, proclaiming Elizabeth II as Queen. All the while, the process was underway to begin the transition to a new monarch. Stored deep in the National Archives in Kew is the official announcement given to the press and dignitaries proclaiming the King's death.
It says, "The King, who retired to rest last night in his usual health, passed peacefully away in his sleep early this morning." What we do know from our records is that over 300,000 people went to the lying in state to pay their respects. So I think that shows the feeling of the nation. The following day, on the 7th of February, Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister at the time, he makes a speech on the radio to the public talking about the dedication of the King and all of the things that he had done in his reign. And quite poignantly, at the end, he turns to the future and talks about the new Queen, Queen Elizabeth II.
When King George VI died aged just 56, the nation came together to mourn a man who confessed to being the reluctant king, thrust into the line of succession after scandal ended his brother's brief reign. He steered Britain through wartime into the post-war era and passed on the throne to his daughter at a time of great transition for our country. Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh were in Kenya on the first leg of a royal tour when she received the tragic news, meaning she had to fly home immediately. And Britain found itself with its first female monarch since Queen Victoria.
She was really unable to mourn because when you're monarch, you're pitched straight into the new job and there is no time for mourning, no time for reflection. The new role is about proving yourself, and in 1952, as a young woman, a young married woman, a young married mother, she did have quite a job to prove herself because it was not necessarily a very enlightened time about working women.
As a mark of respect, the Queen has chosen to spend her accession day privately at Sandringham, where her father spent his final hours. So it will be in June when the nation properly comes together to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee and pay tribute to a British monarch who's reigned longer than any other. Nick Smith, ITV News.
And on Monday's programme, we'll be looking at the Queen's long reign and Sir Winston Churchill, her first Prime Minister. There's a new exhibition at his Kent home, Chartwell, near Sevenoaks. It traces the links between Her Majesty and Britain's wartime leader.
Beautiful place, Chartwell, as well. Now, Holly joins us now. And Holly, it felt a little bit spring-like earlier on this week, a little bit colder today, and I have been seeing some bulby things popping up in my garden.
Yeah, well, meteorologists would tell you, bulby things, I love that. Meteorologists would tell you.
I really am.
That spring begins on the 1st of March, but we're certainly starting to see the signs now. So should we take a look at a few photos from our viewers just to prove it? Yeah. This first one, an amazing carpet of colour here in Eastbourne. Isn't that
beautiful,
gorgeous?
really
Sent
lovely.
in by Bernice Pringle there. We have primroses. That came in from Clinton Vale. We've got crocuses, or croci. Roy Venkatesh sent these in. A couple of bees there, also of course a sign of spring as they come out of hibernation. Got a kestrel, not a classic sign, but apparently they pair up at this time of year and start looking for nesting sites. So if you see two kestrels, that I think is a legitimate sign of spring. Daffodils and two dogs, not so much a sign of spring from John Caudle.
Beautiful.
And lovely snowdrops, of course, a classic first sign of spring sent in by Kirsty Brody.
Lovely.
Should we, though, be concerned that we're seeing spring maybe a bit earlier?
Yeah, this year is not unusual, but if you take a look back at the last sort of couple of centuries, you've seen a lot of warming taking place, and actually many plants now flowering about a month earlier, and this can set a lot of animals, plants and insects out of sync. So yeah, it is a bit of a concern.
Holly, well, thank you very much indeed. Will this weekend be spring-like? Here's Holly.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
A much colder feeling day than we've had of late after that wet start this morning, of course. A very different start tomorrow morning, chilly, bright, but going downhill. Thickening cloud, the wind strengthen. We start to see the risk of coastal gales later on, and it's a windy day into Sunday. Rain at first, but it may well turn drier through the day. So a cold air mass in place at the moment, getting less cold for this weekend, but this is that approaching weather front, a real squeeze in those isobars indicating these strong old winds. As I say, possibly some improvements later on Sunday though. Starry skies overhead at the moment, maybe an isolated shower, but generally speaking it's dry. Bit of a breeze around, and that stops it getting as cold as it might otherwise do perhaps, but generally speaking we could well see values falling down to around about freezing, so many of us probably starting Saturday with a frost. Bright skies initially, but a bit more cloud does wend its way towards us as the day goes on, and the wind starts to strengthen as well. So later on we could start to see our gust values getting up to gale force, potentially 40-45 miles an hour perhaps, possibly some outbreaks of rain later. Into Sunday, it's a windy day, a wet start. It may well improve as the day goes on, chilly but bright to start Monday.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
I think I'll be lighting the fire this weekend. Looks a bit chilly. And just a moment, the ITV Evening News with Charlene White.
Amanda has our late news. For now, though, from all the team here, thank you very much for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.